Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how a woman's entire energy shifts the moment she realizes you're no longer chasing her? One minute she's acting like you're replaceable, like your attention doesn't really matter. And the next, she's suddenly curious, unsettled, even a little bit desperate. That's not an accident. That's human nature. More specifically, female psychology at work in the modern dating world. See, as men, we're often told to keep showing interest, to keep proving ourselves, to stay consistent no matter what. And yes, consistency has its place. But in relationships, when your interest is taken for granted, consistency just becomes predictability. And predictability? That kills attraction faster than anything else. Women may claim they want a man who's always there, always available, always pouring in, but deep down, they crave the man whose attention isn't guaranteed. Think back to your own experiences, the times when you were texting her non-stop, planning all the dates, showering her with energy. How did she act? Probably comfortable, maybe even distant. Now compare that to the times when you pulled back, got busy with your life, stopped reacting to every little thing she did. Suddenly she noticed. She wondered where you went, why the energy changed, and what she had to do to get you back. That's because indifference from a man is one of the strongest triggers for a woman's emotions. It shakes her sense of control. This video is not about playing games. It's about understanding the natural balance between men and women. When you lose interest, or when she realizes you're no longer emotionally invested, it sparks reactions in her that you need to understand. Some of those reactions will try to pull you back in. Others will expose her true colors. Either way, your job as a man is to recognize these reactions and know how to respond without losing yourself. Today, I'm breaking down 7 ways women react when they realize you've lost interest. I'll explain what each reaction really means, why it happens, and what you should do when you see it. By the end, you'll have a clear roadmap for handling these moments with strength, clarity, and self-respect. No confusion, no games. But before we start, listen carefully. What you see here in my channel is just a preview, not the full picture. If you really want to master the dating game and learn how modern relationships actually work, don't waste time. Rush right now to https://stoicapproachtolife.com, GVVVLS, or go to my description and click the link below and unlock the real strategies, the real teachings, the real results. Don't just watch. Level up today. So let's get started. 1. She suddenly seeks your attention. One of the very first things you'll notice when a woman realizes you've lost interest is how quickly she flips her behavior. Suddenly, the same woman who seemed too busy to reply, too distracted to make time, or too comfortable keeping you at arm's length starts giving you extra attention. She'll text you out of nowhere, call just to check in, or even ask questions she never bothered to ask before. Why? Because your withdrawal created a void. See, women are incredibly tuned in to changes in a man's behavior. If you were consistent before, always calling, always chasing, always giving, and then you pull back, she will feel it immediately. That shift unsettles her. It makes her wonder if she's losing control of the dynamic. Here's what's really happening. When you lose interest, she's not suddenly realizing you're the one. What she's realizing is that her source of validation, her emotional comfort zone, is slipping away. And rather than accept that, she tries to pull you back in. Think about modern dating apps. A guy matches with a woman. He shows effort, maybe even takes her out. She responds with low energy, slow replies, vague plans, minimal interest. Then one week, he stops texting her. He focuses on his work, hits the gym, and doesn't even open the app. A few days later, guess what happens? She sends that famous, "Hey stranger" message. Not because she suddenly fell for him, but because his lack of pursuit forced her to question her place in his life. The mistake most men make here is jumping back in the moment she shows a little interest. They think, "Finally, she's giving me what I wanted." But in reality, she's just testing to see if she still has access to your energy. If you rush to give it, she'll relax again and go back to her old ways. So what should you do? Stay grounded. Don't punish her. Don't play childish games, but don't reward the sudden attention either. Match her energy. If she reaches out, keep your responses calm and measured. Show her that your life is full, whether she's involved or not. The key is to let her feel the gap your interest once filled. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, her instinct is to pull you back into her orbit. But your power lies in not getting pulled back into old patterns. A woman who truly values you will adjust her behavior consistently, not just when she feels you slipping away. 2. She gets jealous of your independence. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, one of the strongest reactions you'll notice is jealousy. This jealousy doesn't always appear in loud or dramatic ways. Sometimes it's subtle, hidden under casual remarks or questions. But it's there, and it comes from the shift in balance that happens when you stop giving her your full attention. At the beginning, when she felt secure in your interest, she didn't worry about what you were doing or where your energy was going. You were predictable, reliable, and always available. But the moment she senses your attention slipping, that certainty disappears. And for a woman, uncertainty about where she stands with you can trigger jealousy. She starts to feel that the freedom you are enjoying without her means something bigger. It makes her wonder if you've moved on emotionally, if someone else is filling the space she used to occupy, or if you've simply decided she's no longer worth your effort. That thought alone is enough to spark reactions she can't always control. You'll notice her testing you with small remarks about your time, your plans, and even your silence. She wants to know why you're suddenly less available. She wants to confirm that she still matters. Her curiosity isn't random. It's a defense mechanism that jealousy has activated. And it's often her way of trying to pull back the attention she feels slipping away. This is an important stage because it reveals something powerful. Your independence makes her feel a loss of control. She can no longer count on you to orbit around her world. She sees you creating space for yourself, for your own growth, and maybe even for someone else, and that unsettles her. The man she once thought she fully had now feels distant, and that fuels the fire of jealousy. Here's the mistake most men make at this point. They rush to comfort her. They explain themselves in detail, they reassure her that nothing has changed, and they make themselves available again. While this might calm her temporarily, it destroys the very attraction your independence was building. Because deep down, what pulled her attention back to you wasn't your words, but your shift in energy. The way to handle this is with calm strength. When jealousy appears, don't fight it, don't feed it, and don't panic. Simply continue living your life without bending your world back around hers. The more consistent you are in showing that your independence is not negotiable, the more she will begin to respect it. Jealousy, in this context, isn't just about suspicion. It's about her recognizing that your attention and effort are valuable. It forces her to consider that you could give those things to someone else, and that realization stirs emotions she may not have expected to feel. In the end, her jealousy is proof that your absence carries weight. When you understand this, you see jealousy not as a problem, but as a signal. It tells you that your shift in focus is being noticed. It tells you that your value is real. And most importantly, it reminds you to never let go of the independence that makes you attractive in the first place. 3. She tries to pull you back in. When a woman senses that you've lost interest, one of her most common reactions is to try to pull you back in. This isn't always about genuine love or wanting to fix things. Many times, it's about her pride, her ego, and the uncomfortable feeling of losing control over the dynamic she once held. At first, she may act as though your distance doesn't bother her. She might pretend she's fine, even seem indifferent. But deep inside, she's waiting to see if you'll notice her silence, if you'll chase her again like you used to. When you don't, it sparks a shift. That's when she realizes that she no longer has the same hold on you, and that's when she starts making her move to pull you back. This can show up in many forms. She might suddenly become more attentive, more affectionate, or even more flirtatious. She wants to remind you of what you once had, to trigger those feelings that made you invest in her in the first place. It's not about change. It's about strategy. She's trying to reclaim her influence by drawing you back into the dynamic where she was in control. Other times, instead of kindness, she'll use tension. She'll challenge you, spark arguments, or bring up unresolved issues. Why? Because even conflict keeps you engaged. For her, silence from you feels worse than a fight. At least if you're arguing, you're still emotionally tied to her. And that means she still matters. The truth is, this reaction reveals something important. A woman doesn't try to pull back a man she feels is irrelevant. If she's working to regain your attention, it means your absence hit her harder than she expected. She thought you'd keep showing up no matter what. She believed she had the power to pull away and you'd always be there. But now, with your distance, she's forced to confront the reality that she might lose you. For you as a man, this is where many make a mistake. They see her sudden effort as proof that she truly cares, and they rush back into the dynamic. But when you do that, you reset the game. You undo the power of your distance. What was once attractive, your calm detachment, gets replaced with the same predictable pattern she grew bored of. If you want to stay strong, you must recognize her attempts for what they are, a reaction to losing control, not a sudden transformation of her feelings. By holding your ground and not jumping back in too quickly, you give her space to reflect. You force her to evaluate whether she wants you for who you are or just for the comfort of control. Her efforts to pull you back in are not the final answer. They are simply proof that your shift has made an impact, and once you see that clearly, you understand the power you hold when you stop chasing and let her come to you. 4. She tests your patience. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, another powerful reaction you'll notice is that she begins testing your patience. These tests aren't random. They're deliberate attempts to measure whether you still care enough to react. She wants to see if she still has the power to affect your emotions. Think about it. When you were fully invested, she knew she could push your buttons. If she pulled away, you chased. If she ignored your texts, you doubled your effort. If she created drama, you rushed to fix it. Now, with your energy shifting, she feels that same strategy slipping away. And that's when the testing starts. Let's make this real. Imagine you stop replying right away to her messages. Suddenly, she starts sending you short, cold replies. Or maybe she leaves you on scene to see how you'll react. Another example. She brings up other men, casually slipping a comment like, "Oh, my coworker invited me to lunch." Not because it's a big deal, but because she's checking if you'll show jealousy. These are small traps she sets to gauge your response. If you break and show frustration, if you chase again, she knows you're still under her control. But if you stay calm, steady, and unbothered, you pass the test. That's when she begins to respect the shift even more, even if she won't admit it. There's another scenario many men have lived through. You're busy building your own routine, focusing on your work or hobbies, and she suddenly starts picking small fights. Arguments over things that don't matter. You forgot to like her photo on social media. You didn't answer her call in the first ring. You didn't compliment her the way you used to. These fights aren't about the issues themselves. They're about the silence she feels when your energy is no longer wrapped around her. The key here is understanding the psychology behind the test. When a woman tests your patience, it's not because she enjoys conflict. It's because she needs to feel where she stands. Losing your attention threatens her sense of security, and the test is her way of forcing clarity. She doesn't want to ask you directly if you still care, so she creates situations where your reactions will reveal it. This is where most men fail. They either explode in frustration, which proves she can still control them, or they over-explain themselves, desperately trying to calm her insecurity. Both responses give her the validation she was searching for. But the man who stays calm, who doesn't overreact, and who doesn't let small tests shake him, that's the man who holds his ground. When you stop taking the bait, she realizes her old tactics don't work anymore. That realization shifts the dynamic completely. You're no longer the predictable man she can trigger at will. You've become a man who values his peace, who chooses when and how to respond, and who refuses to be pulled into unnecessary drama. Here's what happens next. Over time, her tests either decrease because she respects your new stance, or they intensify before she finally accepts that the old version of you is gone. Either way, your reaction determines the outcome. If you stay grounded, you rise above the game. If you break, you fall back into the cycle. The truth is, when she tests your patience after realizing you've lost interest, she's really searching for proof of your value. She wants to know if you're strong enough to walk away, if your independence is real, and if your peace is more important than her drama. And when you prove it is, that's when she begins to see you differently. 5. She shifts between distance and attention. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, her behavior often becomes unpredictable. She begins to shift between pulling away and suddenly giving you attention. This is not random. It's a reaction to the uncertainty she feels when your energy no longer revolves around her. At first, you will notice distance. She may act cold, less communicative, or more detached than usual. This distance is not necessarily a sign that she doesn't care. It's a defense mechanism. She is creating space to protect her ego, to convince herself that if you no longer show the same energy, then she will also pull back. But that same distance eventually becomes uncomfortable for her, because the silence exposes her fear that she might truly be losing you. That's when the pendulum swings in the opposite direction. Suddenly, she begins giving you more attention than she had before. Messages, calls, or small attempts to connect appear after her coldness. This cycle of withdrawing and then re-engaging is her way of trying to re-establish control over the emotional balance. She doesn't want to admit she's affected, but she cannot ignore the change. The inconsistency itself is the point. She's testing whether she still has influence. By being distant, she is watching to see if you chase. By showing attention, she is watching to see if you soften and return your focus to her. This back-and-forth behavior is designed to create confusion, because confusion keeps you engaged. When you're unsure about where you stand, you naturally think more about her, and that gives her reassurance that she is still on your mind. For many men, this is the most difficult stage to handle. It is confusing when her actions no longer match her words, when she shifts from cold to warm without explanation. The mistake is to react to these shifts with equal inconsistency. If she pulls back, you chase. If she gives attention, you give more back. This back-and-forth cycle only reinforces her belief that she can still control your emotional state. What she does not expect is consistency from you. If you remain steady, regardless of her shifts, you take away the power of the cycle. When she is distant, you don't chase. When she shows attention, you don't overvalue it. You continue moving with the same energy and focus you've chosen, whether that includes her or not. That stability is what unsettles her, because it reveals that you are no longer dependent on her reactions. Her alternating behavior is rooted in a fear of loss. On one hand, she wants to protect her pride by pulling away. On the other, she cannot let go completely, because the idea of losing influence over you is uncomfortable. The result is this shifting dance between hot and cold behavior, designed to pull you back into her orbit, without her having to openly admit that your withdrawal matters to her. The important thing to understand is that these shifts are not about clarity, they are about control. They are not about resolving the distance, but about maintaining a balance where she still feels in charge of how you respond. If you allow yourself to be pulled by the inconsistency, you remain tied to her terms. But if you remain consistent, you force her to either adapt to your steadiness or accept that she no longer has the effect she once did. When she shifts between distance and attention, she is revealing her struggle to process the change. It shows that your withdrawal has unsettled her enough to create doubt, and doubt creates reaction. The less you react to her movements, the more obvious it becomes to her that the dynamic has shifted permanently. 6. She becomes more self-conscious. When a woman notices that you have lost interest, one of the strongest reactions she experiences is a heightened sense of self-consciousness. This is not always something she admits openly, but it becomes clear through her behavior. She starts paying closer attention to herself, her appearance, her words, and the way she interacts with you. The reason is simple. Your lack of interest forces her to question her own value in the dynamic. This shift happens because attention is a form of validation. When you were invested, she never had to second-guess whether she was attractive to you, whether she had your focus, or whether she still mattered in your world. Your energy acted like a mirror, constantly reflecting reassurance. The moment that energy fades, that mirror disappears. Suddenly, she is left with her own doubts. This creates a quiet form of insecurity. She begins to wonder whether she is losing something she once controlled. She questions if your distance means that something about her is not enough. Even if she doesn't show this openly, it lingers in her mind. It is not about dramatic gestures, but subtle adjustments in her behavior that signal her heightened awareness. The interesting thing about this stage is that it often leads to a shift in her overall demeanor. A woman who once felt certain about her position in your life now becomes cautious. The confidence she had when you were fully invested becomes less stable. She begins to measure how she is being perceived, even when she doesn't want to admit it. The loss of your interest creates a void, and that void forces her to reevaluate how she stands in relation to you. For men, this is where the dynamic becomes very telling. If you notice her becoming more self-conscious after you've pulled back, it is not a random occurrence. It is a direct result of your energy no longer being as available as it once was. The less attention you provide, the more she is left to fill in the blanks herself, and those blanks are often filled with doubt. Now, this reaction doesn't always mean she will chase harder. Sometimes her self-consciousness makes her retreat further, as a way of protecting herself. Other times, it drives her to adjust, to put more effort into how she presents herself, and to re-engage with you in ways she didn't before. But whether it's withdrawal or renewed effort, the root cause is the same. She is reacting to the fact that your interest has shifted. What's important here is the role of consistency. If you maintain your position and continue showing that your life moves forward, regardless of her response, her self-consciousness grows stronger. It is not about manipulation, but about revealing the truth of the dynamic. When you stop over-investing, you force her to recognize that attention is not something guaranteed. It is earned and reciprocated, not demanded by default. The more self-conscious she becomes, the more she realizes that the balance has changed. She no longer has the same security she once did, and that insecurity pushes her to either revalue you or risk losing you entirely. For men, this stage is a reminder of why maintaining composure and self-respect matters. The moment you waver and try to reassure her through renewed attention, the shift is undone. But when you remain steady, her self-consciousness confirms that your withdrawal has had a lasting impact. Ultimately, when she becomes more self-conscious, it is evidence that your lack of interest has unsettled her foundation. It shows that what she once took for granted can no longer be assumed. And that realization, more than anything, is what changes the dynamic permanently. 7. She tries to regain control. When a woman realizes that you have lost interest, one of the most consistent reactions is her attempt to regain control of the situation. This is not always about affection, and it is not always about love. It is about rebalancing the power dynamic that she feels has slipped out of her hands. At the start, when your interest was strong, she felt secure, knowing that your focus was fixed on her. That gave her leverage. She could decide how much to engage, when to respond, and what direction things would go. But the moment your energy shifted, that leverage weakened. Now, instead of her being the center, you are showing that your life is not dependent on her. That is where her instinct to regain control comes in. This can show up in several ways. She might suddenly test you with small actions designed to pull your attention back. She might act colder than usual, hoping you'll chase again. Or she may attempt to provoke a reaction from you, because in her mind, any reaction, even frustration, is proof that she still has influence. What matters here is not the specific actions, but the intention behind them. She is no longer in the driver's seat, and she feels it. For men, this is one of the most critical moments in the interaction. The mistake most guys make is falling into the trap of reacting. They see her pulling away or creating tension, and they rush to reassure her, hoping to restore peace. But by doing this, they give the control right back to her. They erase the effect of their withdrawal and place themselves back in the weaker position. The smarter move is to recognize her attempts for what they are. They are signs that she feels the change. She notices that she no longer dictates the pace, and that unsettles her. If you stay composed and continue moving forward without bending to her attempts, she will have no choice but to respect the new balance. This stage is not about winning a battle. It is about maintaining your frame. A man who doesn't overreact, who doesn't scramble to fix her discomfort, shows strength. And strength is what shifts how she sees you. It turns your withdrawal from a small inconvenience into a major realization for her. When she tries to regain control, she is essentially admitting that she no longer has the same grip she once did. That is your confirmation that the dynamic has changed in your favor. If you stay steady, she will either rise to meet your standard or reveal that she was never going to value you in the first place. Either way, you gain clarity. So when she reacts this way, remember, don't rush to restore what once was. Hold your ground. Because the truth is, her attempts to regain control are proof that your absence has power. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, everything shifts. The attention she once assumed would always be there suddenly disappears, and that absence forces her to confront reality. Whether she becomes emotional, starts chasing harder, withdraws into silence, or tries to regain control, all of it points to one thing. You are no longer giving her the same energy she was used to. And that change unsettles her more than anything else. For you as a man, this is the moment of truth. It's not about games, manipulation, or trying to outsmart her. It's about showing, through your actions, that your life is not built around her validation. When your focus turns inward, on your goals, your growth, your purpose, you naturally shift the balance of power. You stop over-investing, and she is left to see you as you truly are. A man who doesn't need her to feel complete. That's where respect is born. That's where attraction becomes real. Because women react strongest not to the words you say, but to the energy you hold. And nothing communicates strength more than being able to walk away, stay calm, and remain centered when she notices you've lost interest. So, if you've recognized these signs in your own situation, let this be a wake-up call. Stop chasing where you're not valued. Stop pouring energy into someone who only thrives on your attention. Redirect that energy back into yourself and watch how everything changes. If this message hit home for you, don't just walk away with the insight. Stay connected. Subscribe to the channel, tap the notification bell, and be here for the next video. Because this is where men learn the truth most won't tell them. And before you go, remember, what you've just watched is only a small piece of the puzzle. If you're serious about mastering the dating game and building real confidence in modern relationships, don't wait. Visit https://stoicapproachtolife.com AGVVLS right now and get access to the full teaching. That's where the real transformation